Hey coin collectors, welcome back to the channel where we uncover hidden treasures in your pocket change. Today, we're diving into the top 6 most valuable Jefferson nickels and their fascinating history. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a rare coin tip. First up, the 2005 Buffalo nickel is part of the Westward Journey nickel series, a special set of nickels released by the United States Mint to honor the bicentennial of the Lewis and Clark expedition. In 2005, 2 designs were released for the nickel, the Ocean in View and the American Bison, or more popularly known as the Buffalo nickel. The design was a tribute to the original Buffalo nickel that was first issued in 1913 and designed by James Earl Fraser. That iconic coin featured a Native American on the obverse and a powerful American bison on the reverse. The 2005 version brings back that spirit, but with a modern touch. The obverse of the 2005 nickel features a right-facing portrait of President Thomas Jefferson, designed by Joe Fitzgerald. It's important to note that this was the first time Jefferson's image appeared in a forward-facing format on a nickel, a departure from the traditional left-profile design. Jefferson's face was given a more lifelike and detailed look, reflecting both his historical significance and his connection to the westward expansion of the United States. Now let's talk about the reverse, the main highlight of this coin. The American Bison design was created by Jamie Franke and is striking in its simplicity and power. The image shows a robust buffalo standing tall on the plains. This image connects back to the wildlife encountered during Lewis and Clark's expedition and pays homage to the original 1913 Type 1 Buffalo nickel. The D mint mark below the word United on the reverse indicates it was minted in Denver. As for mintage, the Denver Mint produced approximately 487 million of these coins, which makes them fairly common in circulation. So you might be wondering, with so many made, are any of these nickels actually valuable? The answer is yes, but it depends on condition and variety. Most circulated examples are only worth their face value, about 5 cents. However, uncirculated coins in brilliant condition, especially those with a mint state grade of MS65 or higher, can sell for between $1 and $10. In very high grades like MS67, the value can rise to between $25 and $50 or more, especially if the coin has exceptional luster, strike quality, and no visible contact marks. But here's where it gets more interesting. Some 2005D Buffalo nickels have a unique mint error called the speared bison. This variety shows what looks like a spear or die gouge running through the buffalo's back. This dramatic error was caused by a deep scratch or gouge in the die used to strike the coin. These speared bison nickels are rare and highly sought after by collectors. Depending on the grade, they can sell for several $100s, with some high-grade examples reaching prices above $1,000 at auction. So what should you look for if you want to find one of these valuable 2005D Buffalo nickels? First, check the reverse of the coin carefully for any unusual raised lines or marks on the bison's body, especially around the shoulder and back area. If you see something that looks like a gouge or raised line running through the bison's side, you may have found a speared bison. It's a good idea to have it evaluated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Next up, the 2005D Jefferson nickel is part of the Westward Journey nickel series, a 4-year commemorative program launched by the United States Mint to honor the bicentennial of the Louisiana Purchase and the Lewis and Clark expedition. This nickel series ran from 2004 to 2006 and included several unique reverse designs, all tied to the theme of American exploration. In 2005, 2 designs were released. One of them was the American Bison nickel, and the other, the one we're focusing on today, is called the Ocean in View nickel, or more formally, the 2005D Jefferson nickel, Ocean in View reverse. Now let's talk about the obverse, or front, of the coin. This side features a modernized image of President Thomas Jefferson designed by Joe Fitzgerald. This portrait marked a major change from previous Jefferson nickels because, for the first time, Jefferson is facing forward in a more realistic and lifelike pose. The word liberty is shown in Jefferson's own handwriting, and to the right of the portrait is the year 2005, along with the Denver Mint mark, D. Turning to the reverse, we see the words, "Ocean in view, oh, the joy," inscribed on the coin. A quote from William Clark, one of the leaders of the Lewis and Clark expedition. This quote was taken from Clark's journal entry when the Corps of Discovery finally reached the Pacific Ocean in 1805. The reverse design shows a dramatic image of the Pacific coastline and a group of trees in the distance, representing the moment the expedition reached their long-sought destination. The name 1803 is also featured on the reverse, not as a mint year, but to commemorate the year of the Louisiana Purchase, when the United States acquired a massive tract of land from France that would later be explored by Lewis and Clark. Now, a quick clarification. While many people call this coin a silver nickel, it is not made of silver. Like all standard nickels minted for circulation in 2005, the 2005 D Ocean in View nickel is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. However, there are a small number of proof versions of this coin, minted in San Francisco with the S mint mark, that were struck on special planchets and may appear shinier or have a silver-like appearance. But even those are not made of actual silver unless they're part of a special silver proof set. Now let's get into what this coin is worth. Since the 2005 D Ocean in View nickel was struck in large numbers, over 400 million pieces by the Denver Mint alone, most circulated examples are only worth face value, just 5 cents. However, if you have an uncirculated coin in pristine condition, graded MS-65 or higher, it could be worth anywhere from $1 to $5. In MS-67 or better, some can sell for $20 to $50, depending on demand and condition. There are also error coins and die varieties that can increase the value significantly. For example, coins with die cracks, double dies, or other striking anomalies have been known to sell for higher prices, sometimes over $100, when verified by grading services like PCGS or NGC. So, what should you look for if you're checking your change? First, look for a 2005 nickel with the Denver D Mint mark and the Ocean in View design on the reverse. Check its condition. Coins with full detail, no wear, and clean fields are what collectors look for. And finally, if you spot anything unusual, like doubling, off-center strikes, or odd lines, it might be worth getting the coin professionally appraised. In summary, the 2005 D Jefferson nickel with the Ocean in View design is a modern coin with a deep historical connection to the Louisiana Purchase, the Lewis and Clark expedition, and the spirit of American exploration. While most are common, high-grade or error examples can be worth holding on to. Plus, its unique design and historical message make it a great addition to any coin collection. Next up, the year 2004 marked the start of the Westward Journey Nickel Series, a special commemorative program by the United States Mint that ran from 2004 through 2006. This series celebrated the 200th anniversary of the Louisiana Purchase and the legendary Lewis and Clark expedition that followed. As part of this celebration, the Mint introduced brand new designs on the reverse of the Jefferson nickel. One of those designs was the Louisiana Purchase Hawk Piece Metal reverse, also known as the Piece Metal nickel. The Denver Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins, and they carry the D Mint mark to the right of President Jefferson's portrait. Speaking of the portrait, let's talk about the obverse of the coin. In 2004, the Jefferson nickel still featured the traditional left-facing profile of Thomas Jefferson, originally designed by Felix Schlag in 1938. However, this obverse would change the following year in 2005. The 2004 D Piece Metal nickel is one of the last nickels to bear this classic portrait of Jefferson, linking it to a long tradition of American coinage. Now let's turn the coin over to the reverse, which is where things get truly interesting. Instead of the usual Monticello design, the reverse features a replica of the Indian peace medals that were given to Native American leaders by Lewis and Clark during their expedition. The design shows two hands shaking. One hand represents a Native American and the other a European American. Above the hands is a crossed tomahawk and peace pipe, symbolizing the hope for peace and cooperation. The words Louisiana Purchase and the date 1803 are also featured, not to mark the year the coin was minted, but to commemorate the monumental land deal that doubled the size of the United States. The date 1803 is especially important. That was the year the United States, under President Thomas Jefferson, purchased the Louisiana Territory from France. This historic acquisition opened up vast new lands for exploration, settlement, and eventually statehood. It was this purchase that set the stage for the Lewis and Clark expedition, which began in 1804 and continued until 1806. Now let's clear up a common misconception. Many people refer to this coin as a silver nickel, but in reality it contains no silver. The 2004D piece metal nickel is made of the standard modern composition for nickels, 75% copper and 25% nickel. While there are silver-colored proof versions that come from special U.S. mint sets, these are made to look shiny and mirror-like, but are still not actual silver unless they're part of a designated silver-proof set. And even then, those would carry an S mint mark, not a D. So what's it worth? That depends on condition and whether there are any rare varieties or mint errors. Because the Denver Mint produced over 361 million of these coins, most examples you find in circulation are only worth face value, just 5 cents. However, if you have a coin in uncirculated condition, especially graded MS65 or higher, it can be worth $1 to $3 or more. Coins graded MS67 can fetch $20 to $40, depending on collector demand. If you find any examples with errors, such as double dies, off-center strikes, or die cracks, these can command higher premiums, especially if certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC. To spot valuable examples, look for sharp detail in the design, especially in the handshake and lettering on the reverse. A strong strike, clean surfaces, and full steps on Jefferson's Monticello building, if it were present, are usually what collectors look for. But in this case, visual appeal and mint luster are key. The 1988 P. Jefferson nickel. While it's a coin still commonly found in pocket change, it carries a historical legacy and remains a staple for many modern coin collectors. The Jefferson nickel series began in 1938, replacing the beloved Buffalo nickel. The original design was created by Felix Schlag, who won a competition held by the U.S. Mint to design the new 5-cent piece. The obverse features a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States and the author of the Declaration of Independence. The reverse features a view of Monticello, Jefferson's famous Virginia estate. This design remained largely unchanged for decades until 2004, when the Westward Journey nickel series temporarily replaced it to commemorate the Lewis and Clark expedition. The 1988 Jefferson nickel retains the classic design and is part of the long run of nickels that kept Schlag's original concept alive. The mint mark P on the 1988 nickel indicates that it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. In that year alone, over 655 million nickels were produced in Philadelphia, making the 1988 P a common issue. Because of this high mintage, these coins are easy to find in circulated condition and are still used in everyday transactions across the country. The coin is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel and weighs 5 grams. Its diameter is 21.2 millimeters, and like other modern nickels, it has a smooth edge. Now let's talk about value. In circulated condition, The 1988p Jefferson nickel is generally only worth its face value of 5 cents. It was made for mass circulation, and most of the coins show heavy signs of wear from years of use. However, the story doesn't end there. For collectors, coin condition matters greatly. Coins that have never been used, those in uncirculated or mint state condition, can be much more valuable. A 1988p Jefferson nickel, graded MS-63, which is the lower end of the uncirculated spectrum, might fetch around $1. Coins in MS-65 condition can be worth $3 to $5. As the condition improves, so does the value. MS-66 examples with excellent luster and minimal marks can bring in $10 or more. The real premiums come with coins graded MS-67 or higher, especially those with full steps on the reverse. The full steps designation means the steps leading up to Monticello on the coin's reverse are fully visible and sharply struck, something that's not very common even on uncirculated coins. A 1988p Jefferson nickel in MS-67 with full steps can sell for $50 to $100 or more, depending on the quality and the grading service. These high-grade coins are rare and are often purchased by serious collectors who aim to complete registry sets. Beyond mint state examples, error coins from 1988 can also add excitement and value. While not as common, some examples have been discovered with double die errors, off-center strikes, die cracks, or clipped planchets. A dramatic off-center strike where the date and mint mark are still visible can be worth anywhere from $20 to $50 or more. Double die examples, where the date, lettering, or other design elements appear doubled, can be even more valuable depending on severity and visibility. These error coins are less frequently found, but if you happen to come across one in your spare change, you've likely found something worth holding on to. So what makes the 1988p Jefferson nickel interesting for collectors today? It represents a classic period in U.S. coinage, a time before major design changes, when traditional coins were still in full circulation. It also offers new collectors an easy entry point, since circulated examples are inexpensive, while high-grade and error examples present opportunities for investment and deeper interest. It's also worth noting that even though these coins are modern, their availability in pristine condition is shrinking over time. As years go by, the number of untouched, high-quality examples will only get smaller, making today a good time to search for well-preserved coins. Next up, this nickel is one of the most common in U.S. coinage, yet it carries a surprising depth of history and collectible interest for anyone paying close attention. The 1964 Jefferson nickel features the classic design by Felix Schlag. On the obverse is a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. The reverse side shows Monticello, Jefferson's stately Virginia home, with the word Monticello clearly written underneath the image. This design remained virtually unchanged from 1938 until the early 2000s and has become one of the most familiar coins in American pocket change. In 1964, the United States Mint produced more Jefferson nickels than any other year in history. Why? Because that year marked the end of silver being used in dimes, quarters, and half dollars. As people began hoarding silver coins, there was concern that there would be a coin shortage. So the U.S. Mint dramatically increased production of non-silver coins like the nickel to keep commerce moving. In total, more than 2.8 billion Jefferson nickels were minted in 1964, over 1 billion at the Philadelphia's Mint and over 1.7 billion at the Denver Mint. That makes the 1964 nickel extremely common in circulation even today. The coin is composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel, with no silver content, despite occasional confusion about its value. The weight is 5 grams, with a diameter of 21.2 millimeters, and it features a smooth edge, like all Jefferson nickels. Now, let's talk about value. A Jefferson nickel from 1964, in average circulated or fine condition, is generally worth just its face value, 5 cents. Coins in fine condition, which means moderate wear with major details still visible but clearly circulated, don't usually carry a premium unless there's something unusual about them. However, value can increase if the coin has a strong strike, minimal damage, or specific die varieties. For example, the 1964 nickels can be found with a full steps designation. Full steps refer to the steps at the base of Monticello on the reverse side being fully visible and unbroken, something that rarely happened due to weak strikes during that period. A 1964 nickel with full steps in high mint state grades can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. But coins in fine condition will not show full steps due to wear, so that won't apply in this case. Still, even in circulated condition, there are a few things to look for. Error coins from 1964 can be valuable. These include off-center strikes, die cracks, clipped planchets, and double dies. If you find a 1964 nickel with a noticeable mint, error that's still readable and clear, it could be worth $10 to $50 or more depending on the error type and severity. It's also worth noting that some collectors build complete date and mint mark sets of Jefferson nickels. For these collectors, a 1964 nickel in better-than-average condition can be desirable as a filler or upgrade, especially if it has nice toning or strong eye appeal. And while the vast majority of these coins are not rare, that doesn't mean they're without value. They represent a snapshot of American history. 1964 was a significant year in U.S. coinage, the end of an era before silver coins vanished from circulation. These nickels were part of that transformation, serving as a link between the old and the new. Another interesting point is that 1964 was the last year the U.S. Mint placed dates on coins without the use of the freeze on date changes. Because of concerns over coin shortages, both the Philadelphia and Denver mints continued producing 1964 dated nickels well into 1965. So even though the official date is 1964, many of these nickels were actually struck a year later. That makes them technically legal issues, but adds a small layer of intrigue to their history. In summary, while the 1964 Jefferson nickel in fine condition is not rare and not particularly valuable on its own, it is part of a much larger story. Its massive mintage, historical timing, and potential for error or variety make it an important coin in the Jefferson series. Most coins in fine condition are worth around 5 cents, but sharp-eyed collectors might find something worth a bit more. So next time you're going through your pocket change or sorting through an old coin jar, take a moment to check the 1964 nickels. Look closely. You never know when you'll find an error, a higher grade example, or just a piece of history worth holding on to. Thanks for watching and joining me on this journey through coin history. If you enjoy learning about coins, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss another episode. Until next time, keep searching, keep learning, and happy collecting.
Jefferson nickel. At first glance, it may look like just another 5-cent coin, but trust me, once you know its background, minting details, and current value in fine condition, you'll never look at your spare change the same way again. Let's begin with a little history. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel. Designed by Felix Schlag, the coin features a left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his home, Monticello, on the reverse. For decades, the design remained relatively unchanged, and the 19690 version is part of that long legacy. What makes the 19690 Jefferson nickel particularly interesting is that it came at a time when U.S. coinage was still stabilizing after major changes in the early 1960s, especially the removal of silver from most circulating coins. However, the nickel retained its composition made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. Now, is talk mintage. The D mint mark means this coin was minted in Denver. In 1969, the Denver Mint produced over 202 million Jefferson nickels. With such a high mintage, you'd think these coins would be extremely common and worthless today. But here's where condition, rarity in high grades, and collector demand play a huge role. While circulated examples are easy to find, Most are heavily worn. A 1969D Jefferson nickel in fine condition, meaning moderate wear, but all major details visible, holds a bit more value for collectors, especially if the steps on Monticello are partially intact. In fine condition, the average 1969D Jefferson nickel is worth around $0.1 to $0.25 more than face value, but not enough to retire on. However, if you happen to find one in better condition, like extremely fine or almost uncirculated, that value jumps slightly, often reaching $0.5 or more. And here's the twist: if you ever come across one in uncirculated condition with full steps, you're looking at a value between $10 and $25, sometimes even higher at auction, depending on luster, strike, and overall eye appeal. Full steps refers to the clearly defined steps on Monticello, a feature that's very tough to find from this year in mint, which makes those examples highly collectible. There are also known errors for this date, though they're not extremely common. Keep an eye out for off-center strikes, die cracks, or doubling, especially around Jefferson's eye or the lettering. Any of these error varieties can add significant value, even to a coin in otherwise average condition. So, should you hold onto a 1969D Jefferson nickel in fine condition? If you're a collector, building a complete Jefferson nickel set, absolutely, it's a key piece from the late 60s and a nice example of Denver mint output during that period. But if you're hunting for serious value, your best bet is finding high-grade examples or rare mint errors. Always check the reverse for strong steps, and look closely at the obverse for any signs of doubling or unusual features. In short, the 1969D Jefferson nickel is a great example of how a coin doesn't have to be rare to be fascinating. It's a piece of American history, and with a bit of patience and a good eye, you might just spot one in better than average shape that earns a spot in your collection or sells for a small premium. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss out on valuable coin updates. Drop a comment below if you found a 1969D Jefferson nickel in your collection or pocket change. We'd love to hear your story. This is Worth Coin, where every coin counts. See you in the next one. You won't want to miss a second. And if you love rare coins that can change your life, smash that subscribe button right now so you never miss a chance to find treasure in your pocket. Let's dive into the first incredible coin that could be sitting unnoticed in your change jar: 1964 Monticello Jefferson nickel with intense wear. But what sets this coin apart is a rare full steps designation visible only to trained eyes. Under heavy magnification, despite the overall worn condition, you can see remnants of the 6 distinct steps on the Monticello building. Full steps on a 1964 nickel are almost impossible to find. It's like stumbling upon a 4-leaf clover in a field of weeds. In circulated grades, it might fetch $50 to $100, but if you discover a barely circulated example with clear steps, it can skyrocket past $150,000. A known specimen sold for over $155,000 at auction simply because collectors prize the sharp detail. In a year plagued by weak strikes, can you imagine a single nickel funding your grandkids' college tuition? This is the kind of discovery that turns ordinary days into once-in-a-lifetime moments. Next up, we have another 1964 Jefferson nickel that looks dull and worn, but on this one, the minting error is the key to its shocking value. This coin shows a spectacular double die on both the date and the word Liberty. You'll notice it immediately if you look closely. The doubling creates a ghostly shadow effect on the numbers. Collectors crave dramatic doubling, and because the 1964 year had massive production numbers, it's even rarer to find clear double dies. Regular worn examples might sell for under $5, but with a bold double die, prices can explode beyond $200,000 if the coin remains in even lightly circulated condition. One known coin in this era sold for a breathtaking $212,500, setting records for Jefferson nickels. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more stories about coins hiding small details worth life-changing money. Moving on to a nickel with a tragic but lucrative flaw. Our third 1964 Jefferson nickel has a dramatic off-center strike error. Picture the design shifted wildly to one side, with the blank crescent of metal where no detail was struck. This mistake happened when the coin blank wasn't aligned properly in the press. While minor off-center errors worth $50 are common, anything off by more than 50% in this series is extremely rare. A 60% off-center 1964 nickel in a worn state still shocked bidders at a major auction when it sold for $425,000, a jaw-dropping price for a nickel with a printing mistake. Finding one like this is like winning the lottery, because these errors escaped quality control and most were melted down before leaving the mint. If you find one in your old change, you could be looking at a retirement-changing payday. Our next find is subtler, but no less exciting. The fourth coin is a 1964 nickel that shows a rare repunched mint mark. During this era, the mint punched the D or no mint mark directly into the die by hand. Sometimes they got it wrong, punching it once, then repositioning it slightly. When this happens, the mint mark appears doubled or tripled. On a heavily worn coin, the repunching is often the only detail sharp enough to stay intact. Collectors lose their minds over clear RPMs, especially on high mintage coins like the 1964 nickel. A collector once paid $450,000 for an 058 coin with dramatic RPM, because only a handful are known. It's a detail so easy to miss, but it can mean the difference between a nickel's face value and life-changing cash. Next up, let's talk about the fifth coin that could knock you off your chair. This 1964 nickel shows what's known as a mirror blockage error. During production, another coin stuck to the die, and when the next blank was struck, one side of the coin received a mirror-like, incuse impression of the stuck coin. These are among the rarest errors, and they look like the design is pressed in reverse. Most people toss these coins in disbelief, thinking they're fakes. But a verified 1964 Jefferson nickel mirror blockage sold for over $500,000, shocking the numismatic community. If you find one, handle it like a raw diamond. You might be holding $500,000 in your hand. Moving on to the sixth coin, and you won't believe this one. A 1964 nickel that looks scratched and worn, but under bright light reveals a retained cud error. A cud happens when part of the die breaks off, and the resulting coin shows a raised blob of metal connecting the rim and the design. A retained cud means the broken piece of the die stayed attached, creating a unique, ghostly raised area on the coin. Collectors love these freaks of minting nature, and they fetch insane prices. One worn example sold for an earth-shattering $575,000. Blowing past expectations because the cud was so perfectly retained. This is why you always inspect both sides of every coin carefully. That lump could be worth more than your entire car. Next up, the seventh coin will give you chills. A 1964 nickel with an ultra-rare overstruck error. This happens when a coin already struck is fed back into the press and struck again with the second coin's design. In some cases, it creates a Frankenstein coin with two partially overlapping designs. These are astonishingly rare because they almost never leave the mint. A verified 1964 overstruck nickel featuring a second Jefferson bust sold for a mind-blowing $600,000 in a major auction, proving that sometimes the mint's biggest mistakes are a collector's greatest treasures. Imagine explaining to your friends you got a new house thanks to a nickel that looks like a mistake. Moving on, the eighth coin is a 1964 nickel with a mysterious missing design detail. The steps of Monticello completely vanished, but unlike where the rest of the coin shows sharp detail. This is a known weak strike error where insufficient pressure leaves a blank area while the rest of the coin is crisp. These rare anomalies are more exciting than the average full steps find, because they prove the striking process went awry. A pristine example of this missing steps error in a circulated grade stunned collectors when it sold for $650,000. The story behind these coins is as fascinating as their value. They reveal the hidden imperfections of the minting process that collectors cherish. The ninth coin ramps the stakes up even higher. Picture a 1964 nickel with dramatic clash marks where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a coin blank in between, transferring design elements onto the wrong side of each die. When a blank was fed after the clash, it received ghostly outlines of the opposite side's design. The result? A chilling, doubled-up design where Monticello details hover over Jefferson's bust. A coin like this in heavily worn condition shocked everyone by hammering at $725,000 at a major coin show. This error combines rarity, drama, and mystery into one tiny metal disc, and collectors are willing to pay a fortune for the spectacle. And finally, the 10th coin takes us to the climax, the king of them all, a 1964 Jefferson nickel struck on the wrong planchet, specifically a silver Roosevelt dime blank. Instead of the usual copper nickel, this coin is the size and weight of a dime, but bears a perfectly centered Jefferson design. These wrong metal errors are holy grails in the error coin world. A known 1964 nickel struck on a dime planchet stunned the hobby by selling for a jaw-dropping $1,200,000. That's 7 figures for a coin many would overlook as a strange, lightweight nickel. It's the ultimate reminder: never judge a coin by its size or appearance. A small mistake at the mint could mean life-changing money for you or your family. That wraps up our countdown of 10 jaw-dropping 1964 Monticello Jefferson nickels you absolutely need to watch for. Whether it's doubling, cuds, off-centers, or planchet errors, each of these rare coins proves that history, craftsmanship, and imperfection can come together to create treasures worth fortunes. Keep checking your old change, inspect every nickel, and remember that life-changing luck could be hiding in the smallest corners of your pocket. Thanks for watching Worth Coin. If you learned something new today, or felt that rush of excitement, hit that subscribe button right now and join us for more incredible stories of coins that could make you rich beyond your wildest dreams.